Hi guys, my name is Elena, and 2 years ago I went to Turkey to get a nose job. In May 2023, I posted an in-depth video of my nose job experience with Dr. Emre Koçak, who is in Istanbul in Turkey. And I'm going to link that below so that you guys can go check that out. That's going to give you all the in-depth, kind of like behind the scenes scoop of the doctor I chose, the research I did, my experience preparing for the nose job, getting the nose job, all the aftercare, all of that stuff, and my initial results. About 5 or 6 months later, I posted an update video, just kind of talking about like how things were going. And now this is the official 2-year nose job update video. For reference, this is how my nose used to look like before, and this is how it looks now. I'm gonna show you guys from multiple angles. So this is how it looks from the front. This is the left side. This is the 3/4. I love this angle. This is my favorite angle. This is this side. And then this is the complete right side. I say this very cautiously. My nose job was honestly probably the greatest decision I've ever made. And I'll explain why. First, let's get into the logistics of the healing process. When your doctor tells you it takes about a year or 2 to see the results, they are not joking. Like, my nose has changed so much throughout the last 2 years that when I felt like, oh, the swelling went down after 4 months, it went even more down after 8 months. The swelling got even better after, 12 months, whatnot. I also noticed though, at certain times, my nose would look a little bit different. So there was one point in time where the swelling of my bridge almost completely went away, but the tip was still a little bit swollen. So it made the tip look a little bit more upturned, and my friends even noticed it. However, now when I look at my nose, it's a lot more flat. There's still a little bit of an upturn, but it's a lot more flat and straight, which is what I wanted. The moral of the story here is just to be patient. When my nose was first healing, it was super swollen. I still liked it, but obviously it just didn't really fit my face as much because it was wider. There wasn't as much definition, but it took some time to get to where it is now. I didn't do anything special. I stopped taping my nose a couple weeks after the nose job. I didn't really ice it. I didn't do anything in particular. I just sort of let time pass. For the most part, this is how my nose looks all the time. It still is pretty hard to the touch. Like, I can't really move it around. I don't think the sensation ever really comes back into the tip. Like, I can't really feel it that much. And it does feel a little bit hard, but it's nothing that like would make you feel uncomfortable. It's nothing that really bothers me. Like, how often am I going to be squishing my nose? If you've noticed, I did get a nose piercing, and I waited, I got this last year. So that was 2024. I waited an entire year for my nose to heal. And then I thought, okay, you know what? I don't think it's going to move around as much. Plus it's only like at the side. Let's just go for it. Didn't have any issues. Everything was fine. But I would definitely say if you are going to get any nose piercings, wait at least a year or until you feel like your nose isn't as swollen, as tender, so that you can get piercings if you wish. Something that can happen as your nose heals is the development of scar tissue. Now, I think I developed a tiny, tiny little bit, and I'm going to try to show you guys what I mean. There's this little bump right here. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little bump, and it's not super noticeable, but I can feel it, and I can sometimes see it if I'm making certain expressions. Like, I feel like if I like smile, like stretch the skin out a bit more, it doesn't really bother me. I honestly don't know if it's scar tissue or not. I think it might be. I've never like talked to my doctor or got it checked because obviously he's in Turkey. I'm not gonna fly out there. But it doesn't bother me enough to actually be concerned, so I just kind of left it. I think it's normal to have a little bit of scar tissue that forms, usually internally, but I do believe this shows up in some angles, not a really big deal. One of the reasons I got a nose job is because I couldn't breathe. I had a deviated septum, which the doctor confirmed to me, and he did tell me that my breathing would improve. However, he cannot guarantee that it's fully going to be like perfect breathing. So the way that our body works is if something is used to being one way, it's most likely going to revert back to that. Meaning that although he corrected the deviated septum, I guess something about my internal anatomy wants to take that natural shape. So my nose was crooked, and I do believe right now it still is a little bit crooked. It goes a little bit towards the right side. I don't think anyone can notice it other than me, and that's because I study my face more closely. But another thing to kind of keep into consideration is one thing the doctor immediately said to me was that my nose is never going to be symmetrical because my face itself is not symmetrical. Essentially, growing up, not being able to breathe that much, I breathed through my mouth a lot. And I guess what happened was I could usually only sleep on one side because that's the side that I could breathe better on. So my face didn't really develop in the way that it needed to, and therefore everything is a little bit off, meaning that my nose is never going to look like perfectly dead center. Does it need to? Absolutely not. I'm not a perfectionist. It's not that big of a deal. It's fine. My breathing has improved. Over the last 2 years, there would be periods of time where I couldn't breathe as well. Usually that's around the springtime, and I think that just has to do with allergies. Like in general, my sinuses would feel a bit more inflamed, a bit more swollen. It's more difficult to breathe. Same thing in the wintertime. And when I say I can't breathe, I literally mean I can't breathe. Like I don't get a constant flow, steady flow of oxygen in through my nose. And obviously every case is going to be different. But if you are going to get a nose job and you're going for the purpose of fixing your deviated septum to improve your breathing, you will see improvement, but it's not going to be perfect. And that's just something to note. The doctor did tell me that. I like that he was honest about that. He was upfront about the fact that I will not have a complete resolution to my problem. For the most part, I'm okay. And I can kind of mitigate my breathing. Like I'll use Vicks. I drink like mullein leaf tea, which helps with sinus inflammation. So overall, it's been okay. I mentioned in the beginning of the video that the nose job was like one of the greatest decisions I've made. The reason I'm saying that is because it has basically like skyrocketed my confidence. My nose was something that I was pretty insecure about. It wasn't my biggest insecurity, but it was one of them for sure. And I felt like before I couldn't just like confidently walk into the room because right away my mind would be thinking, oh, everyone's just gonna look at my nose. People are gonna see my side profile. When I'd be walking by people in crowds, I'd like, try to maybe hide my side profile with my hair or like pretend I'm talking on the phone. I didn't like when people were kind of too up close to me because I felt like they could see, my nose for what it was. And I do think that it took a big toll on my confidence, right? I wish I was one of those people that could sit here and say, oh, you just gotta love yourself and accept yourself. Clearly, that wasn't the case for me. I did make this major change. And I'm a believer that if you have the opportunity and the means to change something and you're doing so in a way where you're not going overboard, like for example, I didn't go and get like a billion different surgeries. I just got my nose done. I don't think that there's anything wrong with doing that, especially because the outcome was so worth it. Like with this nose, I feel so much more confident. I feel like my face just suits me better. I feel like all my features just kind of tie in a lot nicer. I don't feel insecure now when people are looking at me from any angle, right? I feel like I can just kind of take on anything. And I know it's not just the nose. Like I feel like in general, there's been a confidence boost with other things. Like for example, my skin got clear and before I had acne. My hair got longer. Maybe I didn't like my short hair, whatever it is. The nose job kind of like set that confidence up to be higher. And in my opinion, having a higher self-esteem about your physical appearance will take you so far. Because I feel like before there's so many doors that I purposely closed for myself because I just didn't feel confident enough to kind of walk through them. To me, the long-term effects of how good I feel about my appearance, like it was completely worth that money. And like if I could go back, I would do it 100% again. I would go to the same doctor. I would go through the same process. I literally cannot say anything bad about it. In one breath, I'm telling you, it's like been a life-changing thing. But in another breath, I also kind of feel like there's sometimes a very, very slight part of me that regrets it because I feel like I sort of lost my identity in a way. Like my nose was like a very typical Balkan nose. Like I'm from Macedonia. That's just a Macedonian nose, like a little bit bigger, bump, maybe even crooked. And it's a nose that I see in my family. Like I see that on my, on my parents, on my cousins. And I guess part of me now just feels like, well, I took away a part of like my culture, of my cultural heritage, like something that makes me uniquely me. And by changing that and having a nose that's, I guess you could say, I feel like it just removes a part of my identity and my heritage. But regardless, like I don't think about that too much in the sense that I regret what I have done and the decision that I've made. But like that's just something to keep in mind, especially if you do feel extremely connected to your cultural roots through your physical appearance, through your nose. Our noses tell so much about where we're from. That's just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Regardless though, I am very, very happy with my decision. If I were to do this all over again, I would go to the same doctor. I would go to the same clinic. I'd go to the same country. I highly recommend going to Turkey compared to the US or Canada. I have got some insane quotes from both Canadian and US doctors, and I don't think they would have done a better job because I see people who've gotten nose jobs here in Canada, and I've not once liked their nose. I've not once thought that it looked natural or good on them. I know that's kind of mean to say, but it's just the truth. I feel like in Turkey, they have it more advanced techniques. I had barely any bruising, any swelling. It was such a seamless procedure because the doctors are so well versed in what they do. The hospitality was incredible, and the cost was great. I paid for everything included. So my flights, my Airbnb, food, spending money, and nose job around 9,000 Canadian dollars. I would have easily spent at least double that here in Canada and probably triple that in the States. I know now the doctor that I went with, he does things a bit differently. Like you need to pay a deposit and he has increased his prices. However, it's still going to be significantly cheaper than if you're going to Canada. And the thing is, just because it's reduced cost does not mean reduced quality. They are top of the line. I hope that answers some questions and just gives a little update of how I look. I don't think my nose is going to be changing too much from now until probably I'm a lot older. So this is kind of the finished result. I'm, like I said, super, super happy with it. It is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Thank you guys for coming along with me on this journey. And yeah, we'll see each other soon. Bye.